Education, leadership, and beyond, surviving and thriving. My name is Andrew Murata, host of the show, and it is show number 251. Amen to that. Welcome to our live Facebook audience, proud member of the Education Podcast Network, Voicehead Radio Canada, wherever you are listening to your podcast. We are here for you. I appreciate you tuning in. And to our loyal listeners, leave us a comment, leave us a review, and jump in the show live. That's one of the best parts of the show is being live and having people jump in. Show number 251, we are going to meet Drew Graber, assistant principal. Drew, I'm going to work on my pronunciation, but I just like you when you said Busco. Churubusco Elementary in Indiana. We're going to meet Drew. Drew is highly active, very active on Twitter. He is an educational leader making things happen. He's a young father and a voracious reader. My goodness, he is devouring books. I'm going to ask him that. So we're going to meet Drew here in a moment. Again, show number 251. A couple commercials to kick us off. Our sponsor here, Havesies Cookies. My friend David Maffei and his company. God, it's summertime. You going to a picnic, you're going somewhere, bring some Havesies cookies. The discount code is Murata. We changed that. The discount code is Murata, Marotta. But check them out. They're a great company. Drew, I am going to send you some cookies for you and those little ones of yours and your beautiful wife as a thank you for coming on the show. Havesies cookies. Number 2, we just passed Father's Day. Drew and I are going to talk about the books he's reading. I know he's read a couple of mine. Little shout out for dads, leaders, and father figures. You know a dad, you know a male leader who's a father. It is the book, right? It's summertime. It's time for reading on the beach. So we are recommending that book for you, dads, leaders, and father figures. And lastly, still have some dates left for summer leadership trainings, speaking engagements, school openings. Got a couple dates left. And certainly booking into the fall. So if you are looking for a motivational speaker, you're looking for someone to come to your school, I would love to be considered. Give me a shout out any which way you can. Easiest way, andrewmurata.com or on Twitter at andrewmurata21. All right, let's get started. Show number 251. It is graduation time. It is the end of the year in New York. It's in the Northeast. Many of the other parts of the country, including Indiana, have finished. But we have it. Tomorrow's graduation day, end of the year ceremonies, banquets, award ceremonies, all of that good stuff. And if you are speaking tomorrow, if you are speaking somewhere, someone gave me great advice one time. They said, Andrew, when you speak, be like a comet, brilliant, memorable, and brief. Be like a comet, brilliant, memorable, and brief. So when you go to that speaking engagement, when you go to that event, think about that concept. Brilliant, memorable, and brief when you speak, right? They don't want to keep going on and on and on. Make your point, make it good, and keep moving. Little tidbit for you. It works for me, and I try to keep it moving. Speaking of being brief, enough of me chit-chatting. Let's bring the guest in today, the star of the show here, all the way from Indiana, Milford, Indiana. Drew, welcome to the program.
Glad to be here, Andrew. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, thrilled to have you. This is Drew Graber, assistant principal. Drew, help me out with the pronunciation.
Graber,
number one.
Yes.
Graber, and then
I've been called
Churubusco.
What'd you say?
How do you say the elementary?
Say that again.
Your name of the school, Churubusco?
So Churubusco.
Churubusco.
Yes, man. And that is not a native name to Indiana. town was named after a victory in the American-Mexican War that happened in Churubusco, Mexico. So when that victory happened, that's when the town was founded. So I'm not going to give you a full-on history lesson on it, but yeah, that town that comes from Mexico, it's a town in Mexico. We call it Busco. You know what I mean? That's kind of short. It's Turtle Town of USA. Big legend of Oscar the Turtle. You got to look it up. It's quite creepy because people actually who live there think there's a big giant turtle that lives in the pond and that comes out once a year. It's nuts. So yeah,
we got the groundhog. You got the turtle.
We've got the big turtle in Busco. So it's just this last week they had the Turtle Days Festival in Busco, and it's pretty well attended throughout the state too. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a cool experience. Very small.
Fantastic. I see you supporting your school there. You got the Eagles shirt on. We're representing Port Jervis here as well. So, but Drew, great to have you on the show. Drew, you are a couple weeks into summer, but before we get to that, what was your take on the opening comment? As an assistant principal, you have to speak a lot publicly. What are your thoughts on that? Be brilliant, memorable, and brief. What are your thoughts?
Well, one of the things I found in any sort of communication that you have to be careful with, I oftentimes find myself over communicating, which, is just kind of my way of coping and wanting people to understand me. But there are some times where you really have to, depending on the context of your audience, not that you have to dumb down your message or language, but the brevity part, the being clear, the being short is huge because many times people don't want to know as much as you want to. So being brief is huge. Being clear is huge. But then just knowing your targeted audience is huge as well. When you're giving a presentation or talking with a parent in the office, it's just important to keep it clear and direct. That's what people really want. And really, that's all usually people can handle. They don't want to hear you blabber on.
Nobody wants to hear it. Drew, you're a couple weeks in the summer. We're on the doorstep here in New York. Give me one way you've recharged and one way you've grown so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say probably my recharge has been just being home more often. We're about a week into summer, and my wife Jess and I create a bucket list for the summer. And it's in our kitchen, has about 12 or 13 different things on there that we're going to do. Going to the beach, going to the zoo, going different places. So I'm a very goal-oriented person, so I like that little check mark and getting some stuff done, but really prioritizing that family time, being with my wife and my two kiddos. Our 4-year-old Xander, he's quite the little tornado. He keeps us on our toes, and then our daughter Blake, she's 1.5. But spending time being with them, it kind of refills my bucket and gives me that recharge needed, just because I get to be home and be more with my family that way. Professionally, it's kind of odd because this summer, most of my professional growth is going to be kind of more self-study. The past 2 years, I got to participate in a program called Anali. It's the new administrators leadership. It's through the IASP. It's a 2-year program, so I got to participate in that the last 2 years, and we usually met in the summer and did a lot of PD that way. But a lot of my professional growth this year is going to be kind of more self-directed. I'm kind of hoping that in the next couple of years, if I step up to a principalship, the IASP has a program called IPLI, which is the Indiana Principals Leadership Institute, which is very similar action research. That's another 2-year program, but you have to be a principal to enroll in that. So that's something that I'm going to maybe look forward to in the next couple of years, but it'll be nice to just have a year where I can kind of do my own thing and read and get ready for the school year.
Well, as a reader like yourself, there's so much out there you can learn and direct your own learning. Does Xander get to add to the bucket list?
He did. He wanted to go to the zoo, so we have
nice.
two different zoos that we kind of live in between that we can go to. We go to the Fort Wayne Zoo, or we go up to South Bend Zoo. But yeah, I mean, we've put a lot of things on there, going and seeing animals, going to the beach, going to the pool. I mean, a whole bunch of things that are going to engage him. Our 1.5-year-old's pretty happy no matter what whatever we do. But I think the thing he was most excited about was our movie night, where we're going to go to the movies, and he loves movies. I think he loves popcorn and candy. I don't think he cares about the film he's going to be watching, but yeah, he gets that in that bucket list.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about goals and bucket lists and you professionally, what's a goal that you have professionally this summer? What's something that you really want to accomplish professionally for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things that I've found the last couple of years, I hate saying I've been stuck in the middle school. I was an elementary teacher by trade. I did teach a couple of years of sixth grade language arts. But then my first 2 years of administration, I was in a middle school, which was great being an elementary person. And I think I was able to learn a lot of great things that are happening in the middle school setting, that secondary setting, being able to bring my elementary background. But one of the things I really enjoyed my years in middle school was really working with teachers, and teacher collaboration is huge. So one of my big goals kind of this summer and looking into next year that my principal and I really want to build in is finding some ways to do some learning rounds, some learning walks with teachers.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Privatizing that practice that's going on. Loved Vicki Wilson's book, Instructional Rounds for teachers and leaders. But the big premise of that book is that the answer is in the classroom, and getting teachers to deprivatize the great things that they are doing, and being able to share that openly and create a culture of shared practice is huge. I think it will take our PLCs and our teacher collaborations to the next level when we can get into other classrooms and see the great things going on. We can solidify and affirm people and what they're doing, then we can learn collectively from each other. And so I'm super excited about that project, and then doing some legwork this summer to help put that together and make that a possibility. Getting our second grade teachers into our fifth grade classes, getting our fourth grade teachers down to kindergarten so they can see, what they're working from, and some classroom management. So it's kind of one of our bigger projects going into the next school year, but taking this summer to really get intentional about how we can really roll this out and do it right, small baby steps. So the best way to eat an elephant, Andrew,
one bite at a time.
At a time, brother. So it's going to be an infinite game on this one.
So get to a couple of those bites, Drew. One of the things I've noticed with that, and I love that you're trying to do that, is teacher resistance to that, right? They feel there's a resistance there. What do you think that hesitation or that resistance is? Why is that there?
I think a lot of it comes down to many of the teachers who maybe have been encultured in thinking that their practice and what they do in the classroom is a private professional matter. And so when you've been encultured in that being the common theme of when then you're asked to not only talk about what you're doing in the classroom, talk about the data that your students are demonstrating, but then having people come into your room and watch you do a small group math lesson or something like that, it can be very intimidating if you're not used to it. So I think oftentimes when it comes to any sort of change, making sure you communicate the rationale behind why you're doing this. Oftentimes people, they might understand your rationale. They might do it because they trust you, like, hey, I trust you. I think this is going to be what's good for us, good for kids. And then oftentimes it's not that people don't understand the why. It's not that they don't trust you. They just don't know what it looks like. So really working with people, having that reciprocal accountability and being in the trenches with them and showing how to make this work in meaningful ways. So breaking down those barriers for staff members who are resistant. But that's something to kind of tackle as you go. And I'm sure that will be one of the bigger hurdles in this project. But I'm excited about it because I know it's going to be good for our teachers and our students.
Home run. Drew, back to you in the summer. I know you're, your fitness and you're a former wrestling, athlete. What's your summer routine? Is it different in the summer now in the morning than at school, right? School, we're always hustling to get to school. Is it different in the summer now that you have a little more time? Give me your morning routine here in the summer.
Well, I would say it's not much different in regards to when I wake up. Lately, our son Xander's been waking up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. because
Nice.
he's ready to rock and roll. And that was usually when I was waking up during the school day. So I would say that my morning routine's a little bit more slower in a sense, because I'm not sitting in a car for 45 minutes driving to work. I'm rounding up a 4-year-old and feeding breakfast, and we're watching Netflix on the couch, and we're playing with Spidey and his amazing friends and doing all that fun stuff. But to be honest with you, I mean, it's so much more laid back. It's different than the school day. There's times I really enjoy it and there's comfort in it. And there's other times if I don't have a set game plan for the day or things I want to tackle, it can be a little disconcerting. But my wife's a stay-at-home mom, and God love her. She does amazing things. And I've really enjoyed the being at home, but there's times when now she's been going to work and I've been staying home with the kids, and just it brings a great perspective to what she does for our kiddos. So I enjoy it a lot. But as far as the routine goes, I'm on my feet. I'm moving. I'm moving all day.
Yeah.
They keep me
Are
busy.
you able to get some time for yourself before Xander gets up, or is it bam right to him?
It's usually right to him. He'll usually come in and sneak in bed with my wife and I and snuggle a little bit. And then at that point, you're about 20 minutes in and he's ready to eat. And he eats all the time. Good night. I cannot imagine when he gets older. It's just like, I need a snack. And then it's breakfast time and he's like, I'm not hungry. That's all.
Yeah, that giant snack, those 2 Cinnabons. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Drew, you just finished your first year at you say Busco. I like calling it Busco better. It was your first year. Being an assistant principal is hard. Would you say you survived? Would you say you thrived, or did a little bit of both?
I would say for the most part, just compared to previous years, I felt like this was a year of thriving for me. Obviously, a lot of learning, a lot of growing that way. Some discomfort points. Anytime you're learning new ropes, new people, new building, you're going to have areas where you don't feel like you are doing as well. But it's just been a game changer for me as an educator, being back in an elementary school. Coming back into this role, coming back into an elementary, being able to see a lot of the systems that were in place in the building. I made a big priority not to make a lot of big changes. Going to listening tour. Really building trust and prioritizing those relationships with students and staff. When changes had to be made, you make those just because you can't have a bad system going in place. But I'm super excited for this year to put a little bit more of my touch on some of the systems, for student absences, student discipline processes, and some other things too. I feel like I can make a couple more changes because I've built that trust with people, with the community, and been able to look and see how the system's been working. So I would say one of the biggest areas that I've had to survive in is the assistant principal at the elementary in the Churubusco district. It's a K through 12 building, about 1,000 students, very small.
Wow.
The assistant principal in the elementary is the safety director for the district, which sounds really crazy, but
that's big today.
I know. I coordinate all the drills, which I've done before, but the conducting of safety audits, doing safety projects has been a lot. I've grown a lot in that, and I would say it's been a blessing just because that was an area before that I wasn't, let's say, as passionate about. But now being able to take that role, and it's kind of a district leadership role too. So like when it comes to safety grant money, like I've never had that authority to spend $100,000 on school safety throughout the year. So it's like, oh, okay. But I think it's been good because it's only grown my different leadership experiences, working with not only our elementary teachers, but then also the junior, senior high staff and the high school that way. So it's been great.
Fantastic. And certainly safety and keeping the kids safe, the staff safe is huge. Drew, what is something that you know now that you didn't know in August of last year?
Yeah, a lot. I would say I didn't know how much I didn't know about elementary because like coming back into the elementary role, I was like, oh, I'm going to rock this, science of reading, second grade. I was a second grade teacher. There's just been a lot that's changed since I was a teacher, even 3 or 4 years ago before COVID. My first year of leadership was the first year coming back from COVID. So it was really got thrown in with it was a good thing. I don't think there's any better time to be in leadership or education, but just the stuff that I didn't know, like coordinating kindergarten roundup, the standardized testing and how that's different than middle school. And, my lens coming in was more from the elementary teacher, where now it's an administrator in elementary. So many things I didn't really think about or consider going into this. Probably one of my most favorite things is getting into classrooms and being privy to be able to get into classrooms and see, fifth grade, second grade, fourth grade, kindergarten, and being able to see just the amazing things that are going on. I was just like a kid in a candy shop, man. It's like, I love it. So just really learning a lot about, elementary, and knowing after this year that I don't think I ever want to not be in an elementary. So I think it's solidified it for me. So obviously continuing to grow, continuing to learn is huge to me that way. So
love the little kids, and it's great to hear that you kind of feel like you found your spot there. Another thing you love, Drew, is wrestling. It's been a lifetime love, something you've coached, participated in, etc. What is a lesson that you take from the mats to your work as a school leader?
Yeah. It's hard because when you take something that you've been doing since you were 5 years old, I was 5. Dad came home from work with a pair of wrestling shoes and said, "We're going to wrestling." And I'm like, yes, like, what's wrestling? And you do that from the age of 5 all through high school, through college. After college, I coached for 8 years. So it was, from 5 to 30 years old, you're in a sport for 25 years in and out, and it becomes just an intimate part of you. And I would say one of the biggest takeaways for me is just the mental toughness that sport instills in you. And that belief you have to have in yourself to be able to go out on that mat and 1v1 wrestle somebody, I think is huge, because, you go through a college wrestling practice, you can, by golly, get through that angry parent meeting about the 504 that you didn't do quite as well. But I would say, one of the biggest things, being in a family of wrestlers, my dad wrestled, all my uncles wrestled. Zan, my son, will probably wrestle too. Maybe we'll get him started here in the fall. But one of the things about, the good wrestlers from the great wrestlers is details. And I'd say, being a wrestler, I became very detail oriented and very much wanting to do things well. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. Something that I was kind of instilled in me growing up, and something I took with me in my coaching, and it's something I take with me in my kind of my leadership role. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. So, like I said, I think this last 3 years has been really challenging because I haven't been able to coach doing the administration side of it, but I'm excited as Zan's growing up and getting into it. I can get back into it. And I do like to go up to high school mats and roll around with the high schoolers and shake off the cobwebs. And I feel pretty confident in saying I've still got it. Not my college days, but if I can go out there and still take down a state champion, I feel pretty good. So.
And you're coaching leaders now. You're coaching teachers now. You're coaching kids now. It's a different kind of coaching. Drew, I got to give a shout out to Michelle O from New York. She's a superintendent in New York and a great leader herself. Drew, another love of yours is reading. You are a voracious reader. You're consuming books. It's something that you love doing. Was this as a young kid? Was it early on? Was it something that came later in life? When did you realize, like, wow, I love reading?
I would say it didn't happen until probably the tail end of college, to be honest with you. As a kid, I really struggled in school. Significantly struggled in math. I still struggle in math. You don't want me adding or subtracting fractions, trust me. But as far as reading goes, I really struggled with at a young age. I'd say my turning point in my reading life happened in 5th grade. I had Mrs. Moe, who was a great teacher.
Mrs. Moe
is amazing. I would say kind of one of the big whys on why I went into education, but she was really big on readers' identity and really finding an identity as a reader. So as far as the skill of reading, I'd say really developed throughout late elementary, middle school. I would say the real passion to dive into reading probably happened about near the tail end of college, when I figured out, like, hey, pretty soon I'm going to have to figure this all out on my own. Won't have college professors to assign me stuff to read. But as an elementary teacher, I wanted to be darn good at my craft. So I devoured books on teaching reading and writing, project-based learning, anything that I could implement in the classroom, anything I can experiment with. And it just, I'd be at wrestling tournaments and we'd be in between rounds and I'd be sitting there with a book reading, and my wrestlers would be like, "What are you doing?" And
what is that in your hands?
Yeah, I know. And so it just became a part of me. I would say when I became an ELA teacher in middle school, it changed just because getting the kids to read in middle school can be really challenging. And I went on a 2-year book talk project with my students, and I did some book talks. I front loaded some book talks on YouTube and shared them out to kids. I don't have that YouTube channel anymore, but I have a little over 100 videos of me doing book talks, and I'm up to 1 million views with all my book talks. But one of the things about obviously being a teacher of reading, it's not about faking it, it's about doing it. It's about reading with the kids, being in the trenches. So definitely loved teaching reading. It was one of my favorite things to do. But obviously as a leader now, obviously a lot of my reading is efferent reading. I read to get better at my craft. And anytime I find a book like, dads, leaders, and father figures that helps me come back and get to the soul, that's where I find kind of my most impactful, because I'm not so much looking at a strategy for teacher collaboration. I'm looking at, what do I need to do to become a better person? What do I need to do to reflect about the balance I'm having in my life? And thinking back to my moments with my dad, as you shared moments about your dad in that book and some of your other books too. So I try to balance my reading so that it's not all just, hey, this is how you do things, but hey, this is how you learn and grow and reflect as a person. So
yeah, awesome, Drew, and it's inspiring. And if you follow Drew on Twitter, you see a lot of what he is reading, and you make those great posts. And Drew, it's been an honor that you've read my books and that they've resonated with you. What was something that stuck out to you in one of the books? Something that was like, bam, oh my God. Like, and you've posted so many points. It's really humbling and an honor that you did that. But what was something that really stuck with you?
Gosh, there's a lot. I'll have to play triage with this. I think one of my favorite books from the Tales from the Hardwood was probably that time when I think you were at Duke and you were getting ready for a scrimmage, and their Hall of Fame coach, who I'm not knowing his name, but he's super awesome. I'm not a basketball guy. You gotta forgive me. He came together with all the refs, with you guys, and in front of the players, and everyone said, "Hey, these guys are awesome. These guys are going to do."
Yeah. Roy Williams at Carolina.
Oh my gosh. Like, when you had written that and shared that, I was like, what a great leadership moment of him to be able to demonstrate that trust in you and your colleagues, and just aligning those arrows of, hey, we're all here to play basketball and do it well. I think that was one of my favorite kind of leadership nuggets that I take from that book. I'd say another one was the time that you were working at your dad's. You had a pharmacy, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And you had some sort of graffiti bandit of some sort, and that kept painting over the wall. And your dad made you go out there and paint it every day, and you were getting kind of sick and tired of it. And I think that was a story of persistence, because you eventually outdid the graffiti bandit. And I love that. I love most of your stories about you and your dad. But I love that because it's just that persistence was super important, super good stuff. So excellent book for anybody that's looking, even whether you're a wrestling guy, football, basketball, anything sports wise, that's an amazing book. Really enjoyed that book.
I love it. And Drew, you consume the books so well. You retain the information. You just pulling these stories too. Do you highlight? Do you underline? Do you take notes? Do you fold the pages? How do you retain the information?
We in the Graber house, we do not fold pages.
That's a no-no.
Pages. Good night. I'm like, don't do that. And it's funny because I'll have bookmarks of all sorts everywhere. I mark in the margins. I'll take notes, I'll highlight and stuff, and but you don't bookmark. You
Don't
know,
fold the
the
pages.
dog ear. Sometimes my wife will do this too. She'll like go like, "Oh, like this could be your bookmark," and I'm like, "No, that's a real cover." Good night. But no, I know you figure out my personality, but no, I taking notes. I take notes in the book, and when there are certain quotes or things that really resonate, I do have a Google slide that I'll kind of update for myself and things I'll refer back to. But yeah, the problem is just the level and number of books I'm reading. It's good because I'm soaking it all in and I'm taking nuggets as I go. I can't take every single nugget from a book, but sometimes I find myself reading almost too deeply and not getting, or too much surface level and not getting as deep. So looking at some really key foundational books this summer to kind of reread, go deeper in that connect with some of the things I want to do here in the next school year, but then also just some good stuff to replenish the soul. So
I love it, Drew. And again, he loves reading, and then he loves the books themselves. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to hear. Drew, we have a number of people watching live. If you are watching live, certainly jump in the show. Leave us a question or a comment. Drew, you're a young dad. You're a young leader. You're a teacher. You're doing a bunch of different things. You're on social media. How do you balance that time? How do you kind of put up those barriers that you're with your kids, you're with your wife, you're at school, you're on social media? How do you do that?
It's actually quite easy. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm very rigid in my schedule. But as far as like the habits I build in my day, making sure I have, I have to play triage sometimes with my me time, because oftentimes my family, that's the priority. I mean, that's my priority. When I get home from school, I do what I can to unplug from my work and be present with them. I know in the Dad's Leaders Father Figures book, I loved Larry Dake's balance about balance. As school leaders, we don't always get to determine the quantity of time that we have with our family, because sometimes we're pulled in different things, late meetings, board meetings, and things like that. But what we do have control over is the quality of time when we do have with our family. So being really intentional with that time, making that a priority is huge. Typically my me time in the morning is before school and I'm driving to work, either podcasting or doing some meditating or some listening to some music is important. At the end of the day, after everyone's gone to sleep, oftentimes I'll either find myself reading or doing something that way, hopping on social media, doing some Twitter stuff. But it's just all about compartmentalizing and having good boundaries and making sure your priorities are your priorities. Because when I'm home, I'm dad. So, and when the kids can go to sleep, I'm still dad. But then I can do some other things for me. That balance is
beautiful. Beautiful. And again, your social media posts have shown that spending time recently with your kids. And as my good friends told me one time, Drew, your kids only have one childhood. So continue to be present and you got your priorities in order. And one of the priorities I wanted to ask you about, you speak so highly of your wife. You just celebrated your 9th wedding anniversary and your wife, Jessica, 9 years. But really your wife is a resource for you. Your wife is a rock for you. Tell me about your relationship and what are some of your secrets to success?
Well, I would say, we talked about, yes, we celebrated 9 years yesterday. So thank you. My wife and I kind of earmark it though, because we actually started dating. We were high school sweethearts. He was a freshman. I was a junior. I was robbing the cradle. But we've actually been together for about 15 years. And we were eating ice cream last night on our little date. And she goes, "I've been with you more than half of my life." And I said, "Wow, that's crazy." Wow. I said, it's only that percentage is only going to increase. But no, I would say the secret sauce behind it is that loving unconditionally, that I get and I try to reciprocate for my wife. Our love languages are a little different sometimes, and sometimes I have to get it out of my own comfort zone to help meet her needs. But one of the nice parts about being with her for so long is we know each other. We know what we love about each other. We know our faults. We give each other grace. But we married each other because we're best friends. I mean, we hang out with each other all the time. We'll joke about things. She oftentimes, I'll be thinking of something and she'll read my mind and know exactly what I'm thinking about, which is sometimes kind of scary. But I married my best friend. I would say one of the biggest things I picked up from my dad, that the model he was to my mom and loving my mom and taking care of my mom. But my dad would tell you that my mom is his best friend. And I think that's the most important thing about it is finding someone that you can be vulnerable with, that you can live life with. I've really enjoyed the parenting journey that we're on. It's been stressful, but it's been so rewarding. And I would say that, it's not that I love my wife more and more every day, but there's just a different depth of love seeing her be a mom and kind of impact our kids. So it's just been inspiring. I'm inspired every day. She's wicked smart at math, so she makes sure my math skills are up there. But she was a third grade teacher before she decided to stay home. So she keeps me in check. She's not afraid to call out my BS and hold me accountable. And I wouldn't be the person I am today without her. So
Beautiful, Drew. Beautiful answer. And kudos to you. Not everybody has that. Not everybody cultivates that. We're at 21 years myself, and I love to hear that. It's inspiring. Drew, what's your one word? What's your one action? What's your one behavior? What's your one habit? Surviving blank thriving. There's something in there for everybody. It's actually going to be a book idea. I'd love for you to contribute. But what is your surviving blank thriving in there?
That's a good question. I would say, my one word that's probably always resonated with me, even when I started teaching, was just this element of impact. We all have the ability to make it. We've all been on the receiving end of it. But what kind of impact we make on this world, it matters. And, going into teaching, going into education, being a dad, being, a church member, whatever you do, you're going to have some sort of impact on someone. And
did we lose Drew? I hope we didn't lose him. Oh, there you go. Sorry, we lost you a second there.
No, you're okay. I would just say impact is kind of my one word. I really kind of root myself in whatever I'm doing as a dad, as a leader, and as a person.
I love it, Drew. And again, I hope you participate in the book. That's going to be a book for me here because it's different for everybody. And we all are going through surviving and thriving. And certainly sounds like you have found your spot, your relationship with your wife, your beautiful children. So kudos to you for making that impact. Drew, what was something that you wanted to talk about that I did not ask you?
Oh man, I don't know. I would say that one of the big things that I'm kind of looking forward to, kind of in my educational career and whatever I choose to do, is making sure that I can be the best I can be. I think that's with anything that people do. It's important to really think about your values as leaders. And oftentimes the way you really find out what those values are is you find ways to operationalize them. I'm a huge Brene Brown fan. There's some things she shares about. It's a little bit like, oh, I don't know. But she has a lot of great things on values. And I spent a lot of time this year really looking at my values and trying to get down to, are they values to me or not? Or is there something deeper? I used to think that service was one of my values, and it is, but it's actually, there's something deeper rooted to that. There's a feeling of when someone comes and helps me or serves me or helps me out, there's a feeling of, hey, I want to reciprocate that feeling for someone else. I want to be that person that helps take the load off of someone else. So service is a value, but then, it's actually about reciprocity, wanting to do well and replicate that for other people. And I think as leaders, it's important that we figure out what those values are, because we don't have home values and we don't have work values. We're one person, those values blend together, and making sure we find ways to really operationalize those values is huge. And I'm about 2 values in. I don't think I have more than probably 3 or 4 as I dig and peel back this layer of this onion. But it's something I'm super excited about as I learn and grow as a leader, is really figuring out what those values are and what they look like when you put legs to them. So.
Beautiful answer, Drew, and kudos for knowing those values and keeping it simple. Drew, we're in overtime here, so let's get to rapid fire. We're going to come down the stretch, quick answers. Okay. First thing that comes to your mind, here we go. The last book you read.
Last book I liked, Dads, Leaders, and Father Figures, for sure. Book I just finished up that I didn't like, and the reason I didn't like it was because it was so hard to read. Smart Brevity. Newer book. Written by some journalists about, keeping it simple, keeping it clear, keeping it brief. But just something I wanted to read because I'm like, man, I really need to work on this because I can blabber. So, but
how interesting though that was the opening concept too.
Yeah, exactly. So this book was obviously here for a reason. I enjoyed it, but it was tough to read because I think for most of us, we really have to think about our communication processes and what we're putting out to people and how it's being received that way. So,
last movie you saw?
Extraction 2 on Netflix. It's the 21st century Rambo. I mean, how could you not like it? My wife hated the movie, but I loved it. Extraction 2, you got to check it out. Not
favorite dish?
Pizza.
Hey, forget about it. You're talking to a New Yorker here. Favorite place to travel?
Well, we're going there in the next week. Northern Michigan. We go up to a Mennonite church camp up there. So called Little Eden.
You drive up the western side there of the lake?
Yeah, I'll kind of go up through Grand Rapids. People in Michigan have the little glove thing. So it's on the west side. It's on the Lake Michigan side. Kind of north of Ludington. It's beautiful up there.
On September 1st, I will be glad that I filled in the blank.
I worked my tail off this month. Could have been easy to take it easy and be like, all right, we're almost to summer. But I was able to get a lot of great things done, beginning of the year stuff for school safety and some other things done that really could be done in August, but you never know what the end of July and August brings you. So I feel really good about the productivity I was able to get done here in June, and now I don't have to sweat it in July. We'll see what August brings.
The best leaders are the best because
they're rooted in their why. They know why they're doing what they're doing. We talked a little bit about operationalizing their values, but they know their why, and they are motivated by that why, and they reflect on that why constantly.
A journal or blog you subscribe to?
Oh, wow. I wouldn't say there's one. There's a lot of great things. I really like Darren Peppard's podcasts. Obviously, huge fan of yours. Dr. Larry Dake, love those. I would say probably one of my foundational go-tos is Justin Bader's. He has the Principal Center Radio, a blog, a lot of stuff there. So huge Justin Bader fan.
Pet peeve of yours?
Ooh, well, you heard about the dog earring of the books. But I would say probably one of the biggest things, and I am sometimes contradict myself, but people who use extreme or absolute language, like you never do this or you always do that,
always
drives me crazy all the time.
Never say never, never say always.
Absolutely.
At 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, I feel fill in the blank.
Blessed to be alive, brother. Every day's a blessing.
If a wealthy donor came to your school and offered you $10,000 and you didn't need any permission to spend it, how would you spend it on your school, your kids, your staff, your community?
Oh, man. I'd go right to our playground. Equipment, maybe a gaga ball pit. I don't know if you heard of gaga ball.
Love gaga ball.
Oh, yeah. Our kids love playing it in gym, but they don't have one. So I would probably use it on our playground and use it for our kiddos out there.
Let's get that money to Busco Schools, friends. Best takeaway from this show, Drew, this show for our guests.
Absolutely. You got to know yourself well. You got to have the courage to confront the things that you know you should do better with. You got to strike that balance and have grace with yourself because we are human beings and we are obviously vulnerable that way, but you don't want to be too comfortable or complacent. You got to have the courage to grow and thrive as a person.
One thing you're curious about?
Oh man, I am curious about getting Xander ready for wrestling. I don't know how that's going to go. You know what I mean? I'm coaching high schoolers and taking it back down to 4 and 5 year olds. It's going to be fun, but I'm really curious about how that's going to go. And he's got a really good double leg, Andrew. 2-leg, oh yeah. And you know what? He's got a good sprawl, but I'm just worried that he's going to go transformer and start karate chopping kids. So we're going to see how that goes.
I gotta tell you, Drew, it's so funny. Like here, we suspend kids for fighting at 1:50 p.m. At 2:30 p.m., he's slamming the guy on the ground, and we're applauding him. I, I struggle with that myself.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and the wrestlers. I mean, there's so much there, and so many good things. And Port Jervis, we're famous for wrestling. Our Olympic wrestlers. Drew, something that Drew Graber that people don't know about.
Well, I don't know. I would say I'm a pretty open book. Obviously, I've shared a little bit about my wrestling background. One of the things I was super blessed with in coaching, my second to last year of coaching, I actually got to coach my cousin to a state championship in Indiana.
Wow.
It was the same school I wrestled at, so Northridge High School, and he was Northridge High School's first state champion wrestler. So he goes. He wins the state title match. He avenged a loss from last year at state. A guy who beat him, he wrestled him the next year for the state title, beat him. It came back in the last 30 seconds, final takedown, just truly amazing. So this cat, at the end of his win, he gets interviewed, Matt Side. Hey, Conor Graber, what does this mean to you? Winning the state championship. And, that son of a gun decides in front of, 20,000 people to say, you know what? My cousin Drew came down here twice and lost both times. Now I can rub this in his face the rest of his life.
Oh, wow.
So I was a 2-time state runner-up in Indiana in high school, and really it was tough for me because losing 2 times in the state title match isn't easy. But coming back and coaching at home, and I beat the heck out of him for 7 years. So he had earned obviously that little thing there. But being able to see him win that state title, I think, in a sense, kind of closed the door for me in a sense that way. But just a great wrestling legacy that we have in our family. And Indiana is a great wrestling state. I know it's a basketball state too, but we're on the cutting edge with wrestling too. So
beautiful story, Drew. Drew, I'd love to end with a quote. Do you have one that you love that really resonates with you?
Yeah, I do. I wouldn't say Horace Mann. Wouldn't say I'm a super sexy person in history that way, but obviously super important, person in the development of public education. One of his quotes I really liked was, "Be ashamed to die until you won some victory for humanity." And it's super, super good quote. And, he was so foundationally influenced by Benjamin Franklin. And the free libraries that Benjamin Franklin had established throughout the colonies. And Horace Mann was a product of being able to benefit from those free libraries and grow and develop himself as a person. So to see, the legacy of Ben Franklin move to Horace Mann, who helped get public education started, is huge. So whatever victories that we that we strive for in education are huge. And that's just something that kind of helps root me in my why and what I do as a leader, but then also as a teacher and educator. So
beautiful answer, Drew. Friends, you can follow Drew at _Drew_Graber on Twitter. He's very active. Definitely recommend that you follow him. Drew, it's an honor to have you on. I am inspired by your leadership, your reading, your love for your wife, your family, and I wish you nothing but the best in your journey.
Hey, thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate you and all you do for leaders and everyone throughout kind of this platform. So thank you, sir.
Yeah. And Drew, you love your wife. You got to love your mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, Patricia Grimes, is watching. I got to give her a shout out. Mima, we love you. But this was Drew Graber, Indiana. Check him out. Again, at _Drew, at _Graber on Twitter. Drew, keep rolling on your journey. Friends, if I can help you in any way, don't hesitate to reach out at Andrew Murata 21 on Twitter. Keep rolling, friends. Keep surviving and thriving. We are going to sign off here on show number 251. Drew, stay on the line.